Before we get started on the video, there will be spoilers for the entirety of the Thousand Year Blood War arc to come, so you've been warned. One of the major themes of the Thousand Year Blood War arc is progression, the marching of time, the inevitability of change, and the burying of the past. We see this predominantly early on, when two of the four oldest captains of the Gotei 13 are killed, paving the way for a newer generation to take up the mantle of defenders of the Soul Society. Both Yamamoto and Unohana are forced to reckon with the sins of their past, ultimately leading to their demise. And much later in the story, Ukitake also meets his fate, though while his death also stems from events linked to his past, his is a decidedly more honourable one overall, an attempt at saving those and the world he cares about, rather than dying due to an ancient grudge or to right a perceived wrong. By the war's end, then, of the oldest captains of the Gotei 13, only Kyoraku Shunsui is left standing, and really it's no real surprise. Of the four of them, he represents change the most. He's by far the least concerned with upholding tradition, and upon his appointment to the head captain position, almost immediately made sweeping changes to Gotei 13 protocol. And it was his quick-thinking, unorthodox leadership that helped pave the way for the Soul Society to triumph over the Vandenreich and seemingly impossible odds. But you know all of this already. In fact, I made a video on why Kyoraku was the right choice for head captain not that long ago. The question we're posing today is who should be the next head captain once Kyoraku is gone. The Gotei 13 of the future could potentially look very different from how it does in its current form, or it could look exactly the same. There are a few candidates that really stand out from the rest, a few characters that would have the all-encompassing qualities necessary to take the top job and continue to lead the Gotei into a bright future. While none of the current captains are exact mirrors of Kyoraku in every way, and reasonably you wouldn't want or expect them to be either, many of them at least reflect some of Kyoraku's different characteristics that helped make him suitable for leadership, and combined with what else new they might bring to the table, stand head and shoulders above the rest as the ideal choices. So, let's take a look at which captain should be next in line to be Kyoraku's successor and eventually take on the role of the captain commander. Before we get started on the video, guys, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure to do that now for more Bleach content like this every single week. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up as well to help support me and the channel. And if you want to take that support for me another step further, I do also have a Patreon as well. And as always, I want to give a massive shout out and say a huge, everlasting thank you to everyone that is supporting me over there on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. But if you want to support me in an even easier way, go and check out my second channel, Mr. Tomo Talks Games. Maybe give it a subscribe. I really would appreciate it. I haven't uploaded in a couple of weeks, but that's only because I'm working on a pretty hefty project over there that I really do hope you'll all enjoy. But anyway, no matter the form it takes, thank you all so much for your continued support. Anyway, looking at the current slate of captains at the end of the series, so at the time of the Hell chapter, it's clear that there's maybe only 3 truly viable options to succeed Kyoraku, and even then they all come with some caveats. Firstly though, I want to talk Kenpachi. And that might be a little surprising. Kenpachi Zaraki in contention for the head captain position? Well, no. But while I don't think Kenpachi would ever work as head captain, mostly because I think there's too much bureaucracy and actual admin involved, I wouldn't dismiss him for the same reasons I've seen so many do in the past, and I want to take a moment to kind of counter that. In fact, I think some areas of the community have got one aspect of Zaraki completely wrong: his morality. While he might look like a barbaric monster on the outside, Kenpachi Zaraki is not an evil man in the slightest. He simply loves to fight. He respects his opponents and even chooses not to kill them so they can one day rise to challenge him anew, unless they attempt to keep attacking him once Zaraki feels the fight is well and truly done. There's an interesting juxtaposition between the two Kenpachi that we get to see in the source material. The major difference, I think, between Unohana and Zaraki is that she was explicitly villainous in her disposition. In the past, before laying down the sword for good, Unohana was a wicked and murderous criminal, and I think Kubo lets that shine through in the changes in her design that manifest during the battle in Muken. While Zaraki has absolutely butchered a lot of people in his time, we've never really seen Kubo spotlight him in a way that makes him seem like anything more than a pretty simplistic, good-natured brute who enjoys the thrill of a scrap. Zaraki is certainly one of the utmost honest characters in the series, and while he may sometimes claim the opposite about how much he cares for the Soul Society, the reality is he has Soul Society's best interests at heart, as shown in the way he can sometimes mature and take on that role of captain, the way he rescues and then delivers orders to Ichigo, and his general attitude in the Thousand Year Blood War arc's finale, when he comes together with everyone to assault those who have upended their very lives. If Zaraki were evil or of evil disposition, would he have ever been talked down to by Nanao and actually listened to her suggestion? I'm betting right now that the Unohana who founded the 11th Division and was the first Kenpachi would have probably split her in two on the spot. Anyway, I don't think Zaraki really has what it takes to be head captain from any avenue outside of raw strength and Reiatsu, but it's still interesting, I think, to challenge perceptions of his morality, as I saw that being a major reason why he couldn't have this job in discussions I've seen over the years. Incidentally, Mayuri Kurotsuchi, despite being a veteran captain with a number of victories under his belt much like Zaraki, is probably too far gone on the opposite end of the scale. He is completely diabolical, despite a significant mellowing out in the second half of the story, and although the Gotei 13 is clearly a morally grey organisation, I'm not sure even they could stomach having Mayuri as their leader. They're quite content, and I think he is as well, with allowing him to tinker away in the shadows at his unethical experiments. But again, there's an interesting similarity to be found there between him and Zaraki. Mayuri may claim not to care or not to be interested in the wider goings-on of the world, but he too has the organisation's bigger picture in mind at all times. Anyway, with Zaraki and Mayuri pretty firmly out of the way, who could be the head captain then? Well, in my mind, as I said earlier, it comes down to three people: Toshiro Hitsugaya, Shinji Hirako, and Byakuya Kuchiki. Let's look at them one by one, beginning with the prodigy himself, Hitsugaya. By the end of Bleach, Toshiro Hitsugaya has become one of the strongest captains of the Gotei 13, without question. With his completed bankai allowing him to go toe-to-toe with Gerard Valkyrie with the help of a duo of other strong captains too, Hitsugaya seems to certainly have the necessary power. And with his Zanpakuto being the strongest ice and water blade in Bleach, it feels like a nice reflection of the former head captain Yamamoto and his almighty Sword of Flame. Not only that, but Hitsugaya seems to have the temperament for the job as well. He's steadfast, mostly level-headed, and mature for his age. And he's also shown incredible diligence, both in his training, his self-reflection, and in simply doing the work his current position demands of him, something that can't be said for his vice-captain. I don't know why, but I feel like more than any other captain in the series, Hitsugaya is the one we have seen doing the most paperwork, the most menial tasks, the day-to-day job, the not particularly glamorous and boring side of being a Shinigami, of being a captain. We've seen him doing that the most, maybe more than any other captain in the series. In all these ways and more, it feels like Kubo was writing Hitsugaya to be the perfect person to supplant Yamamoto and later Kyoraku when the time was right. So what then, if anything, holds Hitsugaya back from being the perfect fit for the job? While he might outwardly look like a fantastic candidate, Hitsugaya is still, by all counts, extremely young. We've seen that relative immaturity get the better of him many times before, as he's allowed himself to be successfully goaded by enemies on personal matters. We've seen that difference in experience play out in real time with catastrophic results as well, as Hitsugaya raged against Aizen while Kyoraku, anticipating Hitsugaya's fury, explicitly told him to calm down. But in the end, Hitsugaya's failings cost him and his comrades the fight. At least, though, Hitsugaya has the wherewithal to realise and learn from his mistakes, but usually by that point it's too late. Interestingly, there's another nice comparison to be made here between Hitsugaya and Yamamoto. When the former head captain, after 1,000 years, gave back into his emotions again, into his seething anger and hate, it ultimately cost him his life, which seems to be Kubo's way of saying that for a warrior to succumb blindly to emotion like that on a battlefield might be the gravest mistake of all. Then there's his strength. Now, while I said already that it was impressive, I think there are some elements that need to be considered here. During the Fake Karakura Town battle, Kyoraku says to Stark that Hitsugaya is not only a genius, but will likely surpass him in as soon as 100 years. People tend to use this as a yardstick by which to measure Hitsugaya's strength, but I don't think it's quite that clear-cut. Kyoraku has a tendency to underrate himself, especially to his enemies, in an effort to obfuscate the truth and give them the wrong idea about him. While I don't doubt that Kyoraku does actually expect Hitsugaya to overcome him eventually, I'm not sure the gulf is quite as small as he casually makes out. Also, while he's clearly proven his skill with his Zanpakuto and its abilities, the very existence of Hitsugaya's adult form seems to imply he still has a way to go. In his current state, Hitsugaya needs to wait until all of the ice petals of his bankai have vanished before he can access its true power, at which point his bankai forcibly ages him to a state where it believes he can bear that strength. By the time Hitsugaya actually reaches that age, whatever that age is, whenever this is, and that incredible power becomes the standard strength of his bankai, I think you're looking at someone who is ready to take on the responsibility of the head captain role. But until that time comes, I think Hitsugaya still has some room to grow, pun intended. Up next, we have probably the most interesting candidate of the bunch, the current captain of the 5th Division, Shinji Hirako. Out of the three of them, Shinji is the most experienced and the most veteran of them all, having been a captain over 100 years prior to the main story's beginning, and he's only become stronger since then thanks to his hollowification. His Zanpakuto Sakanade, while unconventional in its ability, is very powerful and has a bankai so dangerous it was banned from use within the Seirete. However, what makes Shinji a great candidate in my mind isn't any of that. It's his intelligence, his wit, his perception, and his mentality. In this way, Shinji very much reminds me of Kyoraku, more so than the other two on this list for sure, and he's demonstrated numerous times in the past his ability to remain cool, calm, and collected, even in the face of great danger and provocation, as well as an uncanny ability to see the truth of things, to see things for how they really are. I mentioned in my battle analysis of the duel between Shinji and Aizen that Kubo depicted Shinji as being capable of verbally sparring with his former vice-captain on equal footing, which is a rare feat for characters in the series. Unlike Hiyori, who gives in to Aizen's taunts much in the same way as Hitsugaya would, Shinji stands his ground, even when those taunts become extremely personal, even going so far as to command the other, more impressionable Vizard to fall back. When Hiyori is mortally wounded as a result of her losing her cool, although Shinji looks momentarily like he's going to succumb to his hatred of Aizen, he's actually able to collect himself and face Aizen down with a clear head, allowing the Allied forces to land their first ever wound on Aizen himself. It's Shinji who proves that a god can bleed after all. Shinji even acts as a mediator on occasion. When the Vizards arrive in the fake Karakura town and they all claim they don't have anyone they want to speak to, Shinji at least recognises the need for some diplomacy to broker a tenuous alliance between themselves and the Gotei, and so goes and speaks with Yamamoto himself. While I think Shinji's overall fighting ability has been questioned, perhaps rightly so, due to his poor showing in the Quincy Blood War, it seems he's more a victim of Kubo's poor treatment than actually being weak. With all things considered, I actually think Shinji might be the single best candidate of the three of them to immediately succeed Kyoraku. There's just one major obstacle standing in his way: his holification. It was already surprising enough that the Vizards were offered the chance to return to their old posts, but it seems extremely unlikely to me that the Central 46 would ever consent to a holified Shinigami sitting on the venerated seat of head captain. In fact, it was only 100 years prior when the Central 46 claimed the Vizard captains should be simply disposed of as hollows. That being said, the Vizards being welcomed back was the first sign of many to come that the old ways of the Gotei 13 were fraying, that the walls of tradition were being broken down. And with Kyoraku currently helming the Gotei 13 and having defied the Central 46 twice on his first day in office, it's possible their influence is lessening overall. Maybe, given time, there's a future where a Vizard could in fact be head captain, but for now it seems an insurmountable hill to climb. That leaves Byakuya Kuchiki as our final candidate, and in my opinion he is at the moment the clear best choice for the job. I've said it before, but Byakuya has often been shown to be the model Shinigami, the master who sets an example for all officers to come. It's possible that after Kyoraku's more liberal approach to leadership, Byakuya might be a slight step back towards the staunch authoritarianism of Yamamoto in the Soul Society arc. But Byakuya has inwardly changed an awful lot since the Ryoka invasion and beyond, so I have faith and confidence that he would continue many of the reforms the Gotei currently enjoys. Byakuya is extremely powerful. After his return from the Royal Palace, he's undeniably one of the strongest captains of the entire Gotei 13. His mastery over Senbon Sakura and its many forms is evident from the plethora of battles he's undergone throughout the years, and he's emerged as one of the most reliable captains of the entire Gotei, capable of proficiently wielding the other Shinigami combat arts in conjunction with his blade. Although Byakuya may be a little on the young side still to actually take up the position anytime soon, his experience in battle is clear, having taken on numerous foes throughout Bleach and built a solid rapport with Ichigo Kurosaki, turning him into a firm ally, which is actually something the other two candidates can stake a claim on as well. Where it feels like Shinji would almost certainly face some prejudice and likely be penalised for his holification and his affiliations outside the Gotei, Byakuya would have completely the opposite experience. If anything, I imagine marrying the seat of head captain with one of the Soul Society's most prominent noble houses would prove very beneficial for the Gotei overall, increasing its power, reach and influence, something that I think would be extremely alluring for them. It's possible the Central 46 wouldn't like this at all, as it maybe gives the Gotei too much power within the realm of the Soul Society, though I think there's very little they could do about it, as nobles have held positions of authority and power within the Gotei since its formation, as we know thanks to Chika Shihoin. Where the holified Shinigami were seen as outsiders, the nobility of Soul Society is highly respected, particularly the Kuchiki household. There aren't many Shinigami more decorated from all walks of life than Byakuya is, and his appointment to the role, I have to imagine, would be very smooth indeed. But don't take my word for it, in the light novel Can't Fear Your Own World, Kyoraku outright states that were he to be gone, Byakuya would most likely take over, and I feel like all evidence supports this. Byakuya Kuchiki should be the next head captain after Kyoraku. Despite that, at the time of the Hell chapter at least, I'm not sure any of these three are quite the perfect person for the position when compared with the current incumbent. They each have their own issues that hold them back. Byakuya less so, making him the front runner, but perhaps the Soul Society doesn't yet have anyone truly capable of taking over the role from Kyoraku, in the same way Ukitake once claimed after the Fate Karakura Town battle that there was no Shinigami yet capable of taking over from Yamamoto himself. So maybe, like it was with Kyoraku to Yamamoto, it's just a case of one of these three getting that role and having the chance to prove themselves. But that's it for the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below, who do you think deserves to be the next head captain the most? Do you agree with my pick, Byakuya Kuchiki? Do you agree with my three front runners overall, Byakuya, Shinji, Hitsugaya, and the reasoning surrounding them all being here, and the reasons why they might not make the position as well? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Do please let me know. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't done already. We're still trying to hit 200,000 subscribers before July. We're inching there, and I really would appreciate any last push to try and get us over that milestone. But that's it for the video, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.